Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations. I'm Steve, and today we're going on our first field trip. So we're going to go see my buddy Ricky about getting a new final drive for this John Deere 430 crawler, one that doesn't have a nice 6-inch crack in it. And I think he's got a few other parts for me. Look around, see what he's got. Got a nice collection of tractors, a couple crawlers, so definitely a couple interesting things to see. So put a little heat in the engine here and turn on my bun warmers, and let's go for a ride. So grab you a cup of coffee, and let's go see what we can get into today. Money, 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 money. Tractors cost a lot of money. Give me some more than money. Hey, everybody, here we are back over here now at Ricky's house to pick up these final drive parts, and figured while we're here we'll take a peek at his collection and see what he's got going on here. So let's switch this around, and here's Mr. Ricky. Ricky, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, Steve.
So what do you got here? What's this first tractor we're looking at?
So this is a 57 Cub Lowboy that it's probably my favorite tractor that I have. It's the one that'll never go anywhere. It's
like
just
custom decal with the logo.
It's just a
Lowboy.
Great little tractor. We call her Baby. It's my only female tractor, but
nice.
I redid this. Everything's got new tires. It ran like a dream when I got it. It doesn't even have electronic ignition. It's the only one I got that still has points in it, and it just runs like a dream. This is a 47 Farmall B. It used to sit underneath out in the flower bed as my decoration, and when I was sick and I couldn't work on tractors for a while, I was limited to a 50-pound weight limit for about a year. I decided I'd put this thing in the garage, and I always wanted a 2-seat tractor, so I bought another B the day after I got out of the hospital and started taking it apart, and the seat frame, got new seats for it, put a little wheel on it so that whoever rides with me can have something to hold on to, and the
nice.
Kids can pretend like they're driving. This right here
very cool.
Is a Farmall Super C. I bought this from a guy. I got it pretty cheap, got it running, and then I really like the old Farmalls, the old F12s. I love that gray color. And I thought, well, this would look kind of cool if I just, everybody's got a red Super C. And these Farmalls, they're all red. I was like, well, I'm going to paint one gray. Let's see what it looks like. So I painted it gray. And then, it's a Farmall, so you got to leave the hood and everything red. And then I just put red accent pieces on it and put the original gray seat back on it. And it's a nice little tractor. I like it. It's a work in progress when I'm not working on the crawlers.
Right.
It's just something I need to finish.
It's nice how we can customize these things sometimes and make them our own. Yeah. I do want to point this out. He's got the optional cruise control on this model.
Yeah.
Very rare. Adds a lot of value to it. All right, here we go. Here's what we're really here for.
All right. So this is my 1950 John Deere MC. So I bought this from a man down near Roanoke. It was sitting in his barn. His dad started the restoration, and when I say started, he took the carburetor off and put a little block underneath it. He was 85 years old when he started it. He worked on it for about 12 years. He never got past taking the carburetor off. But I bought it, and I brought it home. I actually got it running on the trailer and drove it off the trailer, just didn't steer. So we took it apart, kind of the same things you'll see Steve do. Pulled the final drives off, replaced the steering clutches, cleaned everything up, got it all working right, adjusted the brakes so that everything worked. One thing that's different is I designed these little rubber track pads I designed these little rubber blocks. So I took all my track pads off and I had them sandblasted. And instead of putting extra holes in them, what I did was I got longer hardware, and I had Chesapeake Bay rubber and gasket. I took this up and they designed it. They actually cut this little notch out of the bottom of every one of them so that it sits flat on this piece. And then they drilled all the holes for me. And when I put it all together, I put these on there so you can drive it up and down the street. These MCs and the Lindemans, they're very aggressive, the tread, and they'll tear up some concrete and some blacktop really fast if you're not careful. So I did that. I kind of customized this grill. Didn't come with a little grill guard. I like them with a grill guard. So I made a piece that would mount to the front weight and bolt that on there. It didn't have these little side pieces. So I took the side pieces off one of my other ones and I went and bought some tubing, and then I just bent all this stuff just to match that piece.
Yeah, it came out really good.
This one here is a 40C. This one, both Steve and I both have a connection to it because a guy reached out, was wanting to just give it away over in Tennessee, and the problem was it was in a million pieces. Every single thing that could be taken apart was taken apart except for the engine and the transmission. The guy had rebuilt them both, and then he passed away because of COVID. But every single nut and bolt was removed, and he didn't retain any of it. So
the ultimate jigsaw puzzle.
So everything was just underneath a barn, and I loaded it in my dump trailer to bring it all home and pieced it all together. I had to shorten the track frames. There was only enough track to make 4 roller tracks, but he had 5 roller tracks, but he only had 4 rollers for each side. He only had 8 total rollers. So it was missing some stuff. So I actually cut it right here and removed a 6-inch section out of this thing, brought it back together, welded it up just like a 4 roller, and put it together, and it runs good. It does a good job.
That came out really good.
Kind of the last one I did. This right here, this is a 420 crawler. I got this one up in Lynchburg, Virginia, off of a mountaintop. It was an ordeal. My step on my trailer still bent from hitting the side of the mountain going up there.
Collateral damage.
It was sitting in a field. It was probably in the worst shape of all of them. It'd been rained on. The final drives were full of water. Everything was rusted solid. Nothing moved like it was supposed to. And there was a lot. So one, it was my first one, so there was a lot of learning. And then there was just a lot of work that went into it. And you can see from Steve's videos that everything on these things is heavy.
Oh, yeah.
It's heavy. Everything's heavy on it. But so the original owner, I bought it from the original owner's grandson. His name was Mac. So we carried on the name. And then Steve's suggestion was that we would just name the yellow one Cheese. So we have Mac and Cheese. The original owner of the MC was JT. So we just carried the owner's name. So we have JT, Mac, Cheese, and we haven't named the 430 yet. But my next project, just like Steve, we both happen to get the exact same crawlers. I have a 430. So I'm kind of going through it. When I got it, this side here, the final drive, the clutches were out. So when I went to drive it up on the tray, it would drive straight. You could turn this direction. You could turn to the right, but you couldn't turn to the left, which normally is an indication you have a problem on your left side. My problem was actually on the right side. The clutches were completely out, and it wouldn't. This side was just kind of idling and driving along because that side was going. If you pulled on this lever, the whole crawler would just stop moving. The way I found out it was bad is when I went to drive it up on the trailer. this side wasn't moving, so it wanted to just go straight off the trailer. I tried twice. I couldn't get it on there. I tried going up at an angle. It wouldn't go on there. So finally I just pulled up behind it, turned it off, put it in neutral, and just hooked my winch up to it and pulled it up on the trailer and brought it home.
Nice.
All the sheet metal and stuff, I have it. I have to replace the grill. I got to do some work on the grill. But I like it. It's got a reverser. It's the first crawler I ever had that had a reverser. So it's kind of nice in any gear, even reverse, first, second, whatever gear you're in. If you push this forward, you're going forwards. If you pull this back, you're going reverse.
Very nice.
And,
yeah, that's a nice option they added, especially once you have the dozer blade on the front. You know, if you leave it in, say, second gear, it's just a matter of pushing the clutch in, push it forward to go forward, like Ricky said, and then you can go back and forth for, you know, grading flat areas or whatnot.
Yeah, so. You don't even have to press the clutch in.
Oh, really?
Nope. You can just, you pull it back to go into neutral and just pull back.
Oh, nice.
And it'll actually, it's just like if you were letting your clutch out, as you pull back, it just engages and then it clicks in, just like letting your foot all the way off the clutch. You don't even have to use the clutch. You can just use this one lever
new every day.
And it does everything. So it's like your modern hydrostat tractor, really. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you got 5 forward gears and a reverse, and then you've got this, you can just go forward or backwards. It's, you know, for 1959, like this was like cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something they use today, a little shuttle shift. It's a shuttle shift, just like a shuttle shift on a tractor. And it's awesome. I can't wait to get it all done and play with it a little bit more. But it's nice. Right now I have problems with the clutch. My pressure plate's bad. I got to pull the engine back out. This little bar here was broken, so I have fabricated something to make it work. I'm engaging, but I'm still not separating the clutch. So take it back out, and I'm going to go ahead and change the pressure plate. Wasn't great. I should have, it's one of those. I tried to save a little money by using the old one. I should have bought a new one.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's hard. Sometimes we take that gamble, sometimes the older pieces, even though they may not be in the best condition, are better built compared to some of the newer reproduction stuff. So, and unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens. We have to do a little bit of rework, right? But I'm looking forward to seeing this done. I have a feeling Ricky's going to get this one done and restored before I finish mine. I'm usually pretty quick with it, but having to do all these videos and setting up cameras and lighting, it takes a lot of extra time. So, but yeah, I'll learn from his mistakes on this one and see how we do.
But yeah, awesome. That's the collection. Very other cool. Than the 1070 John Deere, and then the workhorse here is the junk Kubota. I bought this in a junkyard and I got it running, and I use it to do all the heavy lifting around here that I don't want to do.
Yep. I'm telling you, having a small loader tractor to help move parts around is a lifesaver. It's an amazing thing for sure. So, well, very cool. And then the whole reason we came here today, Mr. Ricky's hooking me up. We got a new to me, final drive housing here. As you remember from yesterday's video, I had the crack on mine right here in the housing. So we got a new final drive housing, gears. One of my earlier videos, when I was trying to drain the oil, I had coolant coming out of my oil pan, which is never a good thing. So it's helping me out here with a new oil pan. Got some brackets for my 62 blade. One of the other videos I was talking about removing rusty bolts, and you could see where I had ground down to try to remove these, and there's just no way. I was going to have to just cut them off. So got some new brackets for the blade, and then here's just some of the internals from the final drive. The final drive cover for the bottom, and then the seal plate on mine that's cracked. So got some good parts. So thanks to Ricky, we can get this project moving on. So appreciate it, and let's see if we can get this stuff loaded up. Well, here we are back at my place. Thanks again, Ricky, for hooking me up with that final drive and some numerous other parts that I'm going to need. So only thing really different from yesterday is you can see I've erected this engine hoist. Like I said, it's not your typical auto parts store engine hoist. It's a homemade job. It's got some big channel, good strength. It's got a 3-ton lift on it, so really I could theoretically lift this whole crawler with the hoist if I needed to. But for today's video, we don't need to lift the whole crawler thing. The thing we're going to be doing is removing final drives, finally, right? So on the end of my engine hoist here, you can see I've got this handy dandy little tool. Again, Ricky to the rescue, right? He made me a couple of these. This one's a little bit smaller gauge. I think this one's 1/2 inch, but it talks about this in the service manual. But basically what's going to end up happening is once I remove, we'll just go through that step while we're here. So back this out a bit. So in order to get this final drive off, it's really pretty easy. There's 6 bolts in the front, 3 in the back, 3 in the front, and then you might be able to see underneath here, not this one, this is a bearing cover, but there's a bolt here and a bolt here. So 8 total bolts to get off, really not too bad. You do want to remove these 2 first. These are what I refer to as a body bound bolt. So the shoulders inside these 2 bolts here basically are what align this final drive housing onto the steering clutch housing. The rest of these just kind of keep it sucked up against the frame, if you will. So we'll remove these first and push the bolts through just so we don't damage the close tolerance fit on that. And then we'll remove the rest. Once these top bolts come out, the tool, you can see, will line up and it'll go in basically where those bolts are, and it'll allow us to kind of hold this final drive like a forklift basically, and make for easy removal. So I'm going to go ahead and start loosening up some of these bolts and see if we can't get this final drive housing off.
Boy, you can't just battle me.
So I've removed the 2 bolts from the back from underneath the steering clutch housing. I removed the 2 body bound bolts from the front, and I proceeded to next remove the top 2 bolts so that I could slide this tool in to hold and support the final drive housing. And then I removed the bottom 2 bolts. Everything came apart pretty easy. It's not always the case. So anyway, hit on the bottom of the final drive housing a little bit with a rubber mallet just to kind of break things loose. And you can start to get the final drive housing separated from the steering clutch housing. I stopped at this point because I do want to explain something in here. When this comes off, you'll see that there's a drum off this pinion shaft here that has, it's basically your brake drum. And then inside the steering clutch housing is the brake band assembly. So as you're separating these 2 housings from each other, just know that the brake band is probably going to want to stay onto the brake drum, right? And if you just pull and yank, you're going to end up messing up the brake band. They're not cheap, and hopefully we'll be able to salvage this one. So anyway, basically all you need to do is once you get it separated like this, you can get in there with a flat tip screwdriver and you can kind of just prod around and you can push that brake band back in towards the steering gear housing and off the brake drum itself. Also be mindful, safety first, as we're walking around this thing. Don't put your toes underneath this final drive housing, because I can guarantee you it probably would not feel good. So we're just going to slowly kind of keep pushing this brake band back into the steering gear housing, and we'll slowly start to pull the final drive housing away. Should be able to get it loose here pretty soon. It's almost off. there's an adjustment for that brake band that you could loosen up to make it a little bit easier. But I can almost guarantee you 99.9% of the time, especially if you're doing a restoration, that adjustment knob that's in there, it's not the easiest thing to loosen or tighten. It's fine for small adjustments to, you know, adjust the brakes, what it's designed for. But to come in here and loosen up the brake band with that to try to get this housing off, it's not even worth your time, to be honest with you. This comes off pretty easy as it is. So we're almost there, almost got it off. Couple more little pushes here in the front. And she's almost out. Again, watch your toes and make sure my pins are in here on the final drive. No problem there. All right, we'll just slowly pull it out. Come on. There we go. Almost there. There we go. All right. Whew. All right. Now that we've got that pulled out, I'm going to set it down, readjust this. I feel a little more comfortable if this is slid back a little more. And I'll go over some of these components here. So for this part of the video, I've zoomed in more on the components of the final drives instead of me. I know y'all like seeing my pretty face and all, but this stuff's just a little more important. So here's our final drive housing. So basically, if I turn this here, you can kind of see this would have been looking from the back, right? And this was the sprocket that the wheel flange that the rear sprocket, the drive sprocket, was mounted to. On this side is your drive axle from your transmission. So when the engine's running and you put it in gear, the transmission's going to turn this axle here, and it goes through basically a gear reduction, right? So you can see that I'm turning this top one pretty quick, and this bottom one is moving a lot slower, right? So basically, we're changing my Navy friends will laugh, the gas turbine guys, when I say this, but our high speed, low torque to a low speed, high torque, right? It's a crawler. It pushes dirt. It pulls stumps out of the ground. It's not an Indy car, right? We don't need it to go fast, but we do need it to have a lot of torque and a lot of power. So this final drive housing basically just converts that high speed, low torque to a lower speed, high torque. I mean, this isn't really spinning all that fast. But anyway, you get the gist of it. It also gives us a chance to get this crawler raised up off the ground a bit. If we just had the axle coming straight out of the transmission here, it would be riding on the ground. It'd be like a low rider. Low crawler. So anyway, final drive housing. If you look in here, this will probably look familiar. If you watch my other videos about the drive clutches, this is the same exact setup, right? 3-finger, 6-bolt pressure plate assembly. The only thing that's a little bit different on this one is instead of having the fiber disc against the flywheel of the engine, you can kind of see in here, it looks like some gear teeth, right? So these gear teeth are splined to this drive axle from the transmission. And then on the outside here, I think I remember showing you the metal plates that had I think there's like 6 tangs, and here they are right here, right? So those 6 tangs are basically locked into this brake rotor or brake drum, if you will, right? So when we push or when we pull the steering handle clutch, the throw-out bearing, which is right here, right? Remember I told you it spins and it moves. That throw-out bearing is going to come out. In fact, I'll show you here. So I want to make a left turn. I'll grab this left steering handle and I'll pull it. And you'll see that throw-out bearing is moving outwards, right? So clutch disengaged, engaged to drive, or steering clutch disengaged to neutral and steer, engaged to drive. So as that throw-out bearing comes out, it's actually pushing this way on these pressure plate fingers, and it disengages this clutch. So this clutch is these gear teeth and these tabs. So the gear teeth are going to spin with the transmission, And the tabs are going to spin with your brake drum, which is in turn coupled to the wheel, right? So that's pretty much how that drivetrain there works. And we're going to take this all apart, clean everything up. It actually doesn't look too bad. I think I'm going to be all right. I think we might end up just replacing the fiber discs. Actually, they look pretty new looking inside there. Anyway, it's going to come apart to get cleaned. We'll figure out what we're going to do from there. So here is your brake band, right? And this basically, when you apply the brakes, it squeezes around this brake drum. So remember I told you, again, in another video, when we steer, when we pull this handle back a little bit, and you'll see this brake assembly move some because it's loose in here, but the throwout bearing is going to disengage the clutch first. Once the clutch disengages and you keep pulling back, you see that brake band squeeze. Again, it's kind of hard because it's got a pin that's supposed to be locked in here, but anyway, so the clutch will disengage and then the brake band will squeeze on the brake drum here. So these are just all your brake assembly parts and pieces. Let's see, it's pinned in. I can't really get you a better view here. This is your brake adjustment knob. It's got those little 90-degree crosses in it. So you kind of just got to get a screwdriver and you come in through this brake adjustment plate. Remember, that's what we talked about. And you can stick your screwdriver in. And you can kind of just finagle it to clockwise will tighten your brake band and counterclockwise will loosen your brake band. But again, when you're restoring these, typically this stuff's all rusted up. And to get in here and try to loosen it up, to loosen this band, to get this final drive housing off easier, it's probably not going to work so well. So once we get this all cleaned up, we'll put some of that red and tacky grease on there. It'll move nice and easy. We can make adjustments anytime we need. On the front here, we had this cover that threads out. Remember, that was to make the clutch adjustments. And that's going to be, wow, there's all kinds of shadows here. I'm not your best cinematographer. But anyway, that bolt is on the top of the throwout bearing here. Let me get my handy dandy pointer that I made the other day. Whoa, hope you don't get car sick easy. All right, so here is the bolt on top that we would loosen to adjust the travel of this throwout bearing on this shaft here. These are just return springs. There's 4 of them. They return your throwout bearing back to the engaged position. A lot of times these will be all rusted out. And then of course you have your, oh, look, a nice little mouse nest down here. Let's get rid of that. On the bottom of this clutch housing, you'll see a rod coming through here, and it goes to this little cantilever and a rod that goes up, and that rod goes up and back to our brake assembly. So this rod, if you follow it forward, goes to a rod outside here, goes through this torque tube to the brake pedal on the right-hand side. Right here, here's our brake pedal. And there's another rod on this side that goes back to this brake housing as well. So that's it. That's basically the components. Let me zoom out of this here a little bit here. Here we go. So our final drive housing, right? Our drive axle, pressure plate for our steering clutches, at the teeth that are geared into this shaft, and these tabs that are tabbed into the brake drum. And that's it. Does our gear reduction to drive our sprockets and eventually our track. And then back inside here again, we have our throwout bearing, the return springs, all of our brake assemblies and whatnot. So this is your final drive assembly, and then this is your steering clutch housing. And then it's basically the same thing on the other side as well. Now this housing doesn't have to come off from the transmission. I mean, if you want to take it apart to, I don't know, better aid in cleaning or painting or whatever, that's up to you. Or to make it easier for moving around the, you're doing transmission rebuild stuff. But I don't usually take this off. There's really no need to. In the event you had to, I think there's just 4 big nuts. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have these 4 in the front that are bolted into your belly pan, or your bathtub is what I call it, basically the crawler frame. So, well, that's about it. So we got one of the final drives off, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull the other one. I'll do the high-speed video so you don't have to live through that pain and agony again. But we're getting there. We're making some progress and getting this thing apart. Whoa. So that's it. Hopefully we'll get this other final drive off today, and probably going to be it for me for this weekend. Next weekend, I'll probably start taking the steering clutches apart, start cleaning out these housings. Oh, here's a good tip and trick for you. If you're going to be restoring one of these crawlers, you know, we talked about on the top here, there's a cover for your brake adjustment and another cover in the front that unthreads for your clutch adjustment for the throwout bearing. When you're shining a light into these holes to look inside to see where your bolts are for making your adjustments, it's like looking into a dark cavern, right? It's kind of hard to see everything. So what I've been doing, I read this from somebody else online, thought it was a really good idea. Once I clean out this whole steering clutch housing area, get all the rust and grease and everything out, I'll prime everything and I paint it white. So when it comes time for me to make these adjustments, when I open these covers up, I can shine a flashlight in, and that flashlight illuminates the whole interior of that steering clutch housing, and it makes it so much easier to see what you're working on in there. So that's just a little tip. Good idea to paint the inside white or a light color, make it easy to see. And then you can also see here on the bottom, there's a drain hole. So a lot of times if those plugs, it's just a threaded plug that's supposed to be in there. And I will never take this thing into like a swampy environment or anything, but it's designed so that if you do get water in that steering housing, you take the plug out to drain it. Being is that I'm just going to take this to some tractor shows and some plow days. I'm not even going to put a plug in there. It just leaves extra ventilation between the vent on this top cover and the bottom there. It ensures I don't ever have any water or condensation sitting in there. That ends up making these metal discs with the tabs. They get rusted and rotted out, and they expand, and it just tears the whole clutch assembly up. So, all right. Well, that's it for today's video. I'm going to do another quick little shot of me getting the right side final drive off. But other than that, that's it for this week. Looking forward to seeing you return to check out the rest of the videos. Hopefully you learned something, or this will help somebody in their crawler project.